that I really relate to. And when I go through difficult periods in life, I always relate back to David and his example. Right, today we're going to focus on a not that glorious part of David's life. Alright, and unfortunately, what is, at least to the world, most famous for. Right, that's his sin. Alright, and his fall from grace. And we're going to focus on 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 12. Right, to start off, let's just read together 2 Samuel chapter 11. If you have the Bible, if you please turn the Bible to 2 Samuel chapter 11. Verse 1. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men, the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "Isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Uriah, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" Verse 4. Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. She had purified herself from her uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." Verse 6. So David sent this word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." So Uriah left the palace, and the gift from the king was sent after him. Verse 9. But Uriah slept at the entrance of the palace with all of his master's servants and did not go down into his house. When David was told Uriah did not go home, he asked him, "Why haven't you just come from a distance? Why didn't you go home?" Verse 11. Uriah said to David, "The ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my master Joab and my lord's men are camped in the open fields. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and lie with my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing." Verse 12. Then David said to him, "Stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went up to sleep on his mat among his master's servants. He did not go home. Verse 14. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. Indeed, he wrote, "Put Uriah in the front line where the fighting is fiercest, then withdraw from him so that he will be struck down and die." So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah in a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. Verse 18. Joab sent David a full account of the battle. He instructed the messenger, "When you finish giving the king this account of the battle, the king's anger may flare up and he may ask you, 'Why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they will shoot arrows for the war? Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerub the chef? Didn't a woman throw a upper millstone on him for the war so that he died in Jabez? Why did you get so close to the war? If he asks you this, then say to him, also your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead." Verse 22. The messenger set out, and when he arrived, he told David everything Joab had sent him to say. The messenger said to David, "The men overpowered us, came out against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance to the city gate. Then the archers shot arrows at the servant from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite." Verse 25. David told the messenger, "Say this to Joab, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab." Verse 26. When Uriah's wife heard that the husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house. She became his wife, bore him a son. But the thing David has done displeased the Lord. And we stop here. Right? And as you read chapter 11, right, the thing that's foremost in my mind is David is one horrible person. Right? Not only did he usurp his loyal servant's wife, right? He tried to trick his loyal servant to deal with David. He tried to kill his loyal servant. Right? after that, at the end of it, as if nothing happened, like a hero, he took in the grieving widow and married her. And let's look at David again, right? And for those of us who understand David, understand the life of David, all right? Some of us struggle really. At least I struggled, having studied David all my life. I struggled a lot with this and said, was this the same David who slayed Goliath? As a young boy, all right, he proudly proclaimed, right, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that should defy the armies of the living God? Right? What a war cry when the entire army, God's army, was shivering in fear. Right? He came as a young boy, and when he heard Goliath's challenge, right, he was incensed. Incensed because he dared to defy the armies of the living God. This is the same David. Right, who said, the Lord will deliver me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Right? The very same David who, one of my favorite verses in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 45 to 47, where he said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and to the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those who gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and He will give all of you into our hands. This is the same triumphant David. The man who God chose, the man who God saved, was the person after his own heart. He was also the same David who spared Saul twice. Right? The first time in the cave when he came on Saul, right, he said, the Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or lift my hand against him, for he is the anointed of the Lord. Right? If you understand the background, right, Saul was after David, right? After David, chasing after David, David had to be a refugee because of Saul. Saul was, for all intents and purposes, his enemy. Right? And God seemed to have delivered his enemy into his hands. Right? And then the second time, in 1 Samuel chapter 26, verse 9 to 10, again he said, who can lay a hand on the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? As surely as the Lord lives, he said, the Lord himself will strike him. Right? The verse goes on. Right? This is the same David, right, who was so obedient, right, so in line, right, with God's purpose and intent, right, that he knew that it is not for him, right, to strike down Saul. It was for God, because Saul was still lost. Right? So how could a man like David fall so far? Right? And it wasn't just one thing. Well, it was one thing that led to another. And I think it's very important for us to understand this, right? Because it's the same thing that I tell myself as well. Right? If it can happen to David, it can happen to the best of us. Right? We might have devoted our entire lives to worshiping God. We might be there, we might be teaching Bible class, we might be church leaders, whoever we are. Right? Even the king, the Lord is anointed, the slayer of Goliath. Fell, right, to the snares of sin. So what happened to cause this courageous, loyal, God-fearing man to stray so bad? Right? And how did David allow his spiritual condition to deteriorate? Right? And I believe that God recorded this incident of David for us, not to embarrass David, but to really teach us a lesson. Right? Because what happened to David, as I mentioned, could happen to us. All this is really happening to some of us right now. Right? And once we think that we are safe, I think that's where Satan comes in and says, I got you. Let's study a little bit on David's sin and see what we can learn from him. We all know about the incident, right, where he saw Bathsheba, right, bathing, right, called her, raped her. Right, and so he knew he had done something wrong. Right, especially since Bathsheba was pregnant. Right, and so he probably panicked a little. As most of us would, they were caught doing something wrong. Right? And his first instinct was to cover up. Again, the same David, right, was so in touch with God, right, not really worshiping God in sons. Right? His first reaction was not to worship God. His first reaction was, I'm the king. Let's see how I can get away with this. Right? And I wonder sometimes, right, during the entire episode, right, did no one try to talk some sense to David? Didn't David have good advisors, good counsel? Didn't people notice what was happening? Right? How could David not see how far they had fallen? Right? Wasn't it a wake-up call when Bathsheba said that she was pregnant? Right? And I think what we can understand here is that when the darkness of sin has taken hold, light is not done. Even to the best of us. And we don't see it, right? Just as David didn't see it. Right? To the very extent that he called Uriah, right? Asked him to leave his wife. Right? And I think that the stark contrast here was really the loyalty of Uriah. Right? That in spite of everything, Uriah was loyal, right, to David to the end. Right? And I found it a bit cruel as well that the very letter that was going to sentence him, right, he passed to Uriah. This shows how much David actually trusted Uriah, right, not to open the letter. Right? David trusted Uriah, right, but all logic was gone. Right? David didn't see a man who was his royal servant anymore. David saw a man that could get him into trouble. Right? And when sin had taken hold, logic doesn't make sense anymore. And we look at, right, what the movie turns to be the climax. Unfortunately, it is probably the saddest part of the entire story. Right? Where Joab, right, and if you study 2 Samuel, you know that Joab is no angel. Right? Okay, and Joab's gall, right, caused the death of many of David's men. Right? It wasn't just Uriah that died. Right? Many of David's men, loyal servants, loyal soldiers, God's army, right, died together, right, in order to cover the sin. Right? But David was so far gone that his only concern in his relief was to know that Uriah was dead. Right? That Uriah was now free. Right? There was no anger on the part of David. Remember, Uriah was a bit afraid, right, that David would be angry because he's lost so much men. Right? The writer didn't show us any anger on David's part, only probably relief. Right? That now Uriah was dead, he was now free. Right? David's obsession at the time, right, was really, how do I get myself out of this? How do I get myself out of this? And Joab probably knew what was happening. Right? But Joab empowered David's sin. Right? He encouraged it, right, by being part of this work. And sometimes we'll ask ourselves, and I ask myself this as well, am I a Joab sometimes? That instead of helping others, that empower them, right, their sin as well. Are we Joabs? Right, from time to time. And at the end, David thought he had gotten away. At the end of chapter 11. Right? He says, okay, Uriah's dead, all is good. Alright, and he probably looked like a hero, maybe, I don't know. Alright, by taking in the grieving hero, alright, taking care of her. Right, this same David was such a giant of faith, right, righteousness, no remorse. Right? There was no remorse. Right? And personally, I really find it hard to believe that no one knew. Right? Yet no one was brave enough to confront the king. They could die for it. Or perhaps David kept up such good appearances that nothing seems amiss. Right? Perhaps we too have been very good at keeping up appearances. Right? Or perhaps we have been too afraid, right, to confront sin, to confront our brother when he or she sin. Let's now turn our attention to Nathan. Right? And Nathan is another character that I feel that we can learn a lot from. Right? And when Nathan confronted David, and in a moment we're going to reach chapter 12, right, Nathan came with the sole purpose of restoration, not condemnation and judgment. Right? And I want us to realize that all of us need to be a Nathan somehow. So let us see what we can learn. Right? If you have the Bible, let's turn to 2 Samuel chapter 12.